Hey folks, this is Kalani. Patch 9.2 will be introducing a whole bunch of changes into the game, giving us different things to chase after and work towards, and lots of new content to enjoy. Professions haven't been left out entirely this time. There are quite a few changes to go through, and I think there's going to be some prime candidates for making a whole boatload of gold in this patch. So what are the best professions for gold making in 9.2? Well, let's find out. Before we jump in, be sure to hit up that like button and subscribe so you never miss another video. Now, to talk about which professions are going to be the best for making gold in patch 9.2, we need to see what new options we have and how they're going to interact with our old options, especially the ones that were making us a lot of gold. Some of the most important and most impactful changes for professions in patch 9.2 are for crafted gear. There's actually some pretty cool additions in here. To start with, we have two new Crafter's Marks to collect, which will significantly increase the item level of crafted gear in the new patch. They're going to work the exact same way as they have throughout Shadowlands. You can add them as an item level adjusting optional reagent when you craft your piece of gear. The Crafter's Mark 4 will increase the item level of any crafted gear you use it on to 233, so that's the new baseline for crafted gear in 9.2, which should be very useful for anyone who hasn't done a lot of gearing up in the current patch, or for anyone who wants to gear up their alts quickly, or maybe just for anyone who doesn't take part in the typical gear grind group content like Mythic Plus dungeons and raids. You can learn the Crafter's Mark 4 recipe from getting 2 honored with the Enlightened Broker faction in patch 9.2. On top of that, we have the Crafter's Mark of the first ones. This is another special Crafter's Mark that will increase the item level of your crafted gear to 262, which is absolutely huge for pretty much anyone going into this patch. My Hunter is kitted out in full Mythic Raid gear, and I will still be rushing to create one of these new crafted pieces. That's how strong they are in comparison to any rewards we currently have access to. The catch is that you can only equip one piece of gear created with this mark, so only one piece of crafted gear can be 262. That's still going to be great for important gear slots like rings and necklaces though. The Crafter's Mark of the first one recipe is also obtained from the Enlightened Broker reputation vendor after you reach honored. That's not all though. All rare crafted gear recipes will have an extra optional reagent slot on them where you can place a new progenitor effect. There are 8 new crafting items total, so 8 effects to choose from. Alchemists can make the Sustaining Armor Polish, which increases the duration of flasks, elixirs, and food buffs. They can also make the Infusion Corpse Purification item. This one gives you a chance to get additional resources from corpses. Enchanters can make the Cosmic Proto Weave, which increases your avoidance and gives you a chance to get healed when you take damage. May be pretty useful for all the tanks out there. And the Magically Regulated Automa Core item. This one gives you the chance to spawn an Automa Core which explodes for damage and healing. Potentially a good AoE option. Engineers can make the Pure Air Sail extensions, which increases your movement speed and mount speed while in the Shadowlands, and the Erratic Genesis Matrix. This one says, being struck by an enemy builds electrical sparks. At 5 stacks, the circuitry shorts and lashes out, so a good bit of free damage. And then Jewel Crafters can make the Devourer Essence Stone. Slaying enemies increases your highest secondary stat for a brief moment, stacking up to 5 times, as well as the Ephemera Harmonizing Sphere, and giving you a chance to harmonize sound, increasing your primary stat. Another interesting option, potentially good for raiding, depending on how good the proc ends up being. Those are the only new items, so quite a few professions don't actually get to make any of these new optional crafting reagents at all, so you'll have to buy them from someone else or rearrange your professions. Honestly, we won't know how good many of these are going to be until we can play around with them on live servers. Some of them could end up being great, or all of them could be trash. We'll have to wait and see. All of these new recipes seem to drop from rare monsters in Zereth Mortis by the looks of things, so you should be able to get your hands on them fairly easily and fairly early on in the patch. So as far as making gold from crafted gear goes, it's actually a bit of a split. Some professions can make the actual gear, which is going to be a very good source of gold for the most part. Lots of players will be coming back to the game, and everyone loves to gear up their alts in the last patch, so that 233 crafted gear and the 262 crafted gear will probably make you a nice chunk of gold. On the flip side, some of the other professions will have these interesting new powers that could end up being quite powerful, especially when combined with the 262 gear. If those optional reagents can increase the value of crafted gear enough, you might be able to make some good gold selling them. If you have both professions to create the effects and create the crafted gear, well, you might be in the best position possible to sell crafted gear in the next patch. The other big change for professions in 9.2 is related to legendary crafting and upgrading. There's one new rank of legendary items in patch 9.2, bringing the max rank up to 7. As with previous upgrades, you're going to need a few things to upgrade all of your legendary gear to rank 7. The first thing is a rank 7 legendary base item. That probably doesn't surprise any of you who have been here for a while, and the way in which you get a rank 7 item works in more or less the same way as the rank 6 items did. You need a legendary crafting item that raises the rank of your crafting result by 3 ranks. This Vestige of the Eternals is the only new item, which means there's only one way to reach rank 7. You need to craft the rank 4 recipe with this new item plus 3 to raise the rank up to 7 total. That also means that you will need the rank 4 recipes unlocked to craft rank 7 items. So if you have 0 progress in your legendary crafting right now, you won't be able to make rank 7 base items at all in 9.2. Of course, these new higher rank base items can be bought and sold on the auction house, so you don't have to craft it yourself, but they are going to be very expensive, and that's where the gold making comes in with these changes. You will also need a new currency to upgrade legendary items to rank 7 when you actually plug in the base item at the rune carver, but that's not super relevant to crafting or professions or gold. To get your hands on this new Vestige recipe, you will need to get honoured with the new rep grind in 9.2, so rep is going to be very important for all the crafters out there for a variety of reasons. They will require different materials depending on the profession, but they all use some old materials, some new materials, and a new legendary crafting item that basically replaced Korthite. The Progenitor Essentia can be found in the same kind of places: rare monster kills, treasures, the bi-weekly quest chest, and probably rarely from daily quests. You can also buy and sell it on the auction house, so I don't think it's going to end up being that rare. And if you want to make some gold from this whole ordeal without having to actually do very much, farming and selling the Progenitor Essentia could be very valuable. So in the case of gold making here, legendary crafting is going to be huge once again. If you can craft rank 4 recipes right now, you actually don't have to do anything extra until 9.2, then you can pick up the new Vestige recipe, collect the ingredients, slap it together with your rank 4 recipe, and boom, rank 7 legendary base items to sell for a massive amount of gold. If you want to make the most gold with legendary crafting, look at what slots are used the most for the armor class you're creating. Jewel crafting specifically is going to be great for this, because rings and necklaces are often used to avoid conflicts with armor types, and the secondary stats are very useful. Another small but still interesting new item in 9.2 is the new feast. The empty kettle of stone soup is going to be incredibly easy to make, but it comes with a catch. The feast itself costs 1 kettle, 1 shaded stone, and 5 refreshing spring water to create. The kettle could be purchased from a cooking vendor for 250 gold, so that's really the only major expense right there. But when you put this feast down, that's actually not enough to generate the food buff. People need to contribute to the feast until it's full, and then it will let you eat it for the same 20 stat buff that our other feast provides. Anyone can contribute, even if they're not in your party or raid, but I think the main scenario these feasts will be used in is raids, so the raid leader can pop one down, and anyone with spare materials can throw something in. You can contribute with 5 proto-flesh, 1 precursor placiderm, 5 of each Shadowlands meat, or 1 of each Shadowlands fish. Each contribution seems to progress the bar by 10%, so it doesn't take too long or too many materials to finish, and it's an interesting way of getting your group to contribute to a feast. As for how this will affect your gold making, it's going to depend a little bit. This feast has a high vendor cost to start with, 250 gold just for the kettle, but it's not really that difficult to make. It also pushes the responsibility of providing the feast effect from a single player onto the entire group, especially in raids. This could be a way to soak up some of the excess materials that players will find themselves hoarding in 9.2, like the proto-flesh meat item. Throughout your adventures in Zereth Mortis, you're sure to kill plenty of beasties, so this meat will just be lying around. That means your raiders will more than likely be able to contribute enough meat to keep these feasts viable as long as they're playing in the Zereth Mortis zone. If this feast ends up being cost effective, it could significantly reduce the price of the typical feasts that we've been using up until this point. So if you make your gold through selling feasts, it might be time to look into something else. Then again, you also have to wonder if this new stone soup is going to be time effective. You have to throw it down, wait for players to contribute, then you can finally get your food buff. You also have to do that before every single pull and after every single wipe. That extra time could add up quite quickly, which could lead raid leaders to saying it's just not worth it, so they continue on with the usual feasts. It will all depend on how the community reacts to this new feast and its sharing the responsibility mechanics. So feasts could go down in value to kind of match the stone soup, or they could just stay the same or maybe stay a bit higher. Now, you may have heard that there's new raw materials coming in patch 9.2 in the Zereth Mortis zone, and you would be correct. There's a new ore, the Progenium ore, a new herb, the First Flower, a new cloth, the Silken Protofiber, a new leather, Protogenic Pelt, as well as a new meat and fish, Protoflesh and Precursor Placiderm. So quite a few new raw materials to collect, and when there's new raw materials in a patch, gathering professions tend to do quite well as far as gold making goes, but as time goes on, supply of these items might far outweigh the demand. Besides the new crafter's marks and optional crafting reagents, the only decently important new crafts are for more powerful healing potions, and then a new Vantus rune for the Sepulchre of the First One's raid. There's no new flask or combat potion, no new cauldron to worry about, no new enchants, no new actual crafting recipes. We still can't craft higher item level weapons, there aren't even any new toys or pets or anything. So even though there are new materials to collect, you won't actually have that many things to use them on. In fact, if we pop on over to Wowhead and we check what all these materials can be used for, the lists are incredibly short. The Progenium ore is currently only used in the new crafter's marks, the new optional reagents, and the Vestige of Eternals, and that's it. The First Flower has a much shorter list. It can be used for the new healing potion, crafter's marks, optional reagents, and it can be milled. Protogenic pelts are used for crafter's marks, contracts, Vantus runes, and the Vestige of Eternals, so at least they're going to get a lot of repeated use from all the scribes out there. Silken protofibers are used for crafter's marks, optional crafting reagents, and the Vestige. No other uses for the new cloth item by the looks of things. The new meat, protoflesh, doesn't seem to have any use other than throwing it into the new feast. And the same goes for the new fish. So unless we're totally missing something here, many of these items are incredibly specific and kind of niche for what they're going to be used for. It's worth noting that jewel crafters can prospect the new ore, so they have another option for obtaining gems and essences, so at least it will be useful for them no matter what. And then the last big change for professions coming in the new patch is for gatherers in general. Any monster that can be gathered when they die, so whether that's skinning, herbing, mining, or whatever else, when you gather from a dead creature or monster, instead of disappearing after one player gathers from them, they will now persist and allow every player who engaged them and got credit for killing them to also gather with the same profession. It's an interesting change and should make it less annoying when you're trying to get something specific from a monster, but I don't know if it's going to change too much in the long run unless gathering from dead monsters actually becomes worthwhile. For the most part, you usually get trash items with the exception of skinning, obviously. That's where this change is going to really shine. This also makes it viable to farm monsters in a group with the intention of skinning them. Apparently, some small weak creatures will still only be skinnable once, probably to try and avoid specific skinning farms becoming too profitable, but it's an interesting change that makes skinning in general much easier to take advantage of, and it makes it a smoother social experience. You shouldn't see any raging about stolen skins in the future. While this could significantly increase the supply of leather into the market, I don't think it will do too much to other materials or professions. And that's kind of it. That's all of the profession changes coming in patch 9.2. There's not all that much to look forward to in the grand scheme of things, so many of the same gold makers are going to stay relevant, and some are probably going to get much better. As a quick roundup, I would say gathering is still going to be easy gold for the most part, and it should be some pretty good gold early on when it's all brand new. Just don't expect to get all too much from those new materials as the patch progresses. Crafted gear will be steady gold for the rest of the expansion, I think, so anyone who can craft gear should do alright for themselves after they get access to the new crafter's marks. If those optional effects turn out to be really good, very specific 262 items with specific effects could make a boatload of gold. We'll just have to wait and see if any of them are super duper worth it. And then legendary crafting is going to be where the big bucks are again. If you don't have your rank 4 recipes unlocked yet, it's going to be a huge investment to get caught up to speed, but if you play your cards right, you could make so much gold in patch 9.2. I think rank 7 legendary base items are where a lot of the gold is going to be in this patch, so I would focus on that where possible. Personally, I think jewel crafting is going to be one of the best professions for gold making this time around. Not only do they have access to the higher item level crafted gear with rings and necklaces, they also create what look to be some of the better optional crafting reagents in the new patch. They can also craft legendaries, and rings and necks are still some of the most sought after legendary gear slots out there, with tier sets coming in 9.2 and the ability to equip 2 legendary items. I think rings and necklaces will only become better options for your legendary effects. You can also craft the second legendary effect on any piece later on, and I bet most players will opt for rings or necklaces for the huge secondary stat boost, and because there's no way those slots can ever conflict with their tier gear. Jewel crafters might also get the best use out of the new raw materials with the prospecting of ore, and might be able to benefit from them not having too many other uses. So if I were to put my gold somewhere, it would be with jewel crafting. Thankfully, I already have my rank 4 recipes ready to go, so I'm looking forward to making a boatload of gold in patch 9.2. It's just a shame that we don't have too much to look forward to as far as professions go, but that's it for this video. What do you think about there not being too many new things to look forward to for professions in the new patch? Had you hoped for more, or do you think professions are fine how they are? What profession do you think is going to make the most gold in patch 9.2? Leave all your thoughts in the comment section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon and to everyone who's subscribed on Twitch. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss another video. Thanks for watching, folks. Good luck and have fun, and as always, I'll see you next time.